Hello and welcome back. It's day 189 of this growing an ice cream bean cutting series. I'm spraying Bayer BioAdvance 3-in-1 to control preemptively against pests and parasites. The ice cream bean cutting is actually one of the healthiest plants, but I just tend to do this for all of my plants. So only a few have problems. The lemon tree has the most problems. I don't even know if this stuff works against bird poop caterpillars, which is one of the main problems with that plant. But yeah, that one has a lot of problems. It seems to always have some kind of infection. The leaves are curled as soon as they get older than a certain age. It'll seem like the leaves come in real healthy in a big wave, and then something goes wrong. So that doesn't seem to be the case with my ice cream bean. The leaflets on the compound leaves make it, and they become really, really big, 8 inches or longer. I think turgor pressure is somewhat of an issue because the leaves are so droopy. I don't know if it looks like that in the wild. I should look that up and just see if the wild leaves all look like this, or it could just be because due to fertilization and my growing conditions that I give all my plants, I always end up with really torrid leaf growth like this, perhaps due to the Miracle-Gro and calcium supplementation and other trace metal supplementation from the crushed vitamins. So I always get huge leaves, and then that weighs down the plant. So it might look a little bit unnatural, but it otherwise seems quite healthy. You can see there's sets of new leaves coming in, compound leaves, and they sort of have this like chocolate coloration to them. So it's day 192. I came home to this. I was extremely irritated. I just can't have this pot in the open anymore. So this isn't the first time it happened. I believe by the time I filmed this, maybe it's the second or third time, and I have this rock that's now on the ground. So yeah, I used the rock to try to weigh down the pot, but to no avail. So these pots are very just kind of stupid in design. It's like the bottom is narrow, and then the top is wide. So by nature, if you fill it up with dirt, you just get a very top-heavy pot, unless you were to put in rocks at the bottom, which would take up a lot of soil volume. So you can see there's a cocoa coir spilled and lots of root fragments. So the damage is minimal, I believe, from this fall. But I had to keep uprighting it and scooping that stuff back when it's all cold and rainy and windy outside. So on day 196 was the start of an uncharacteristically wet, rainy season in San Diego and in basically California. And we got a lot of precipitation over the winter and coming months. For most of 2023, actually, it was very rainy as well. So some records were shattered. Maybe we're entering a wet cycle, hopefully, in Southern California. But yeah, the leaves look all right. I moved this into this sheltered cove where the door is to lessen the amount of wind that batters this plant. So the compound leaflets are huge, and that's why the plant catches so much wind resistance and blows over so easily. So it's a variety of factors. It's the perfect storm of confluence, and you can see these older leaves actually look pretty nice, the leaflets. There are some that look a little bit more rough, but there is some kind of insect that flies over, perhaps at night, and preys on this plant. I believe it may be a katydid, or just katydids in general. I don't think it's the same one over and over. But things like that, or maybe a very large grasshopper, locust. So it's never around during the day when I observe this plant. I've seen this little thing that looks like a little pill-shaped, armored, fuzzy green caterpillar that I filmed for you, I believe, at the end of the first episode, or maybe sometime during the second episode. I never saw that again. So I still don't know what the thing is, and I've just never seen more of them. So on day 209, I'm demonstrating my new hose wand that I purchased from Lowe's. This thing is really nifty. I love using it, and it gives the forearms actually quite a workout if you water with it for a very long time, because there's a lot of leverage from the water spraying constantly. So I use it like this to wash the undersides of the leaves sometimes as well. And it's just a great like high flow device for giving me a lot of extra reach as my plants grow taller, and for getting the entire front yard, even the sides where little flowers are growing, etc., and other miscellaneous plants left by the previous tenant of this place. So yeah, the plant overall looks very healthy. It's really hard to keep the cocoa coir fully hydrated for this plant because it's very thirsty, but as you'll see later on in this episode, it gets a lot bigger. So the water demand just kept rising and rising. So yeah, other than that, just a quick generalized update and talk about everything going on in general. So one of my viewers mentioned that using cocoa coir started him on this long journey of overwatering, and I believe I have made that mistake starting at the end of 2022 because it's so naturally wet. Any plant that wasn't sheltered under a roof awning just got way too much water during that period. And it was very cold, very wet, and that eventually led to the death of my papaya plant on the left that you can see right now, which is a big pity because I thought the problem was something else, but eventually I saw and I felt that there was rot, softness on the base of the trunk, even though that thing had a very thick trunk and robust one. So I realized then that it was doomed because the entire trunk, the burl, if you want to call it, of the root system was just rotted away from the inside out. So there was nothing I could do at that point, and it was just a goner. And snails and slugs came to eat the leaves, which started all turning yellow and falling off. So by the time you realize there's something wrong and with the shoot system, oftentimes it's actually the root system that has completely rotted away. And likewise, for my other plants, I'll have updates on those as well. The lemon tree, the mango cutting are in small pots still, and remained in small pots for a very long time. And it appeared that they were drying out very rapidly as well, but in reality, I mean, the root systems were still kind of underdeveloped, and I was watering too much. That plus the rain. So it's day 232. So if I don't shelter this from wind, it's just going to fall over. But it's so big, I can't just keep it in front of my door. I only do that when we have really strong winds, which is actually pretty frequent here. So we're adjacent to the desert. This is a Mediterranean climate. It's a chaparral environment. We have a lot of scrubs out in the wild, but they don't get very tall. There's not a lot of things to provide wind resistance other than just mountains and valleys and things like that. But that actually, the topography of the local geography just accelerates the winds. In many cases, it funnels the winds into bottlenecks. So yeah, it's windy in the mountains, it's windy in the hills, it's windy in the open deserts. So we have Santa Ana winds, I believe 23 times on average per year. So Santa Ana winds are these wind spells for like 1 to 4 days. This leaf coloration scheme is similar to my mango that you can see in the background to the left here. Right now, at that time, it didn't have a lot of these really beautiful like multicolored leaves, but every time it gets a new set, it has stunning colors. And I do believe the cold of January has had some effect on how long these color phases last versus during summer when everything's growing a lot faster due to the average day and night temperatures. I believe the transition to a full-on green and maturity for the leaves is much, much quicker. So that's a benefit of the cold months in San Diego, is you could see these colors and enjoy them for a long time. And you've got ones that are yellow, and yeah, it's very attractive foliage for this plant, and it has quite a presence to it, as my neighbor would say. So there's all sorts of colors, and later on you'll see there's also sometimes like purples and browns as well, like chocolate coloration of very big compound leaflets. So it's visually an attractive plant. The leaves are a little droopier than I'd like, but perhaps that's just due to everything being so oversized from fertilization. So it reminds me a bit of the giant Bangkok guava, which is still growing, but it's at a friend's house that's being rented out. So I don't have access to that anymore, but it needed a home, and last I saw from pictures, it's getting bigger. So that thing had leaves that could get really, really big. I believe it was close to like 9 or 10 inches. Yeah, this ice cream bean has like compound leaflets that are 8 to 9 inches sometimes. So yeah, something's eating these leaves. It prefers the mature leaves, which is a good thing, because I'd hate to see these beautiful new ones just get chewed away immediately. The bird poop caterpillars that infest my lemon tree, well, it's more of a seedling still, not even a sapling. Those prefer to just eat the new foliage, so they're just constantly nipping away at the buds. You can see from the shadow here, I'm using the gimbal that I purchased. I don't know. It was probably sometime around then, the December 2022, so this is a month later. So the gimbal gives me more reach and more video stability, but it does have its drawbacks, and it's harder to use. Sometimes it just kind of waves in certain directions that I didn't intend for it to do. Most of the time when you see people using a gimbal or something like a selfie stick to film video logs, live streams while they're walking on the street, they just have that fixed on themselves, focused on themselves, and they have it out in front, for instance, and they don't change direction, whereas I'm constantly changing direction, which requires a lot of maneuverability and sometimes, like, I think the gyroscope, the software inside of this gimbal just doesn't understand what I'm trying to do, so it's just going to swing. And that means I have to do a lot of different filming attempts. But otherwise, it is a very nifty device. So I kind of, waffled between using that, and later on I tended to film by hand more, as you'll see later on in this video. So it's day 273. The ice cream bean sapling is imbalanced due to it being a cutting. So cuttings always tend to grow in one direction or another, as I've found, and I find myself doing some pruning to address that later on. But you can see the trunk is fairly thick without cutting in there and feeling around. I mean, I definitely can see that it's very robust. No rot problems like the papaya, which you can see it's already rotting away and dying in the background. And you have a lot of new foliage, but this branch is growing out almost entirely parallel to the ground, to the side, and so is this one. And the leaning actually accelerates and exacerbates as the new branches grow out further, and I get these giant leaves maturing. So I'm going to do some pruning here. I'm just kind of sizing this up and deciding where to cut. But you could tell the The wood is very quick growing, very healthy. Kind of reminds me of a tree of heaven a little bit. That is an exotic invasive that really infests most of the country at this point, but particularly in the East Coast because it gets a lot more rain there in the eastern United States mostly. So that thing has traveled everywhere. It's a invasive tree from central China that grows really, really well here. Actually, it grows in California too, but the point being that has large compound leaves, but it grows at a very upright stance, all of the leaves. Whereas this one, it's just really droopy in general. So yeah, after that pruning, I think it's a lot more balanced, but just to be sure, I'll get rid of some more. So it always pains me to prune like this because I don't want to lose all that like healthy foliage, in particular new growth. But you can see this is everything I've cut off so far. So that's quite a bit of biomass. All really healthy leaves except for some of the older ones. So yeah, I mean they're not going to stay pristine forever. Eventually the leaves just get old and they start appearing burned or damaged at the edges, and then eventually they'll fall off. And this is one of the major shedders in this front courtyard of mine, and I have to do some sweeping these days to get rid of all the leaves. So you see there's leaves in the background in that sheltered cove where I keep this thing. And I think, yeah, even that mango cutting, it didn't blow over, but it got knocked over by this one time. And the water collection tray cracked too. So it's day 337. Crickets live underneath these pots. So if I kind of do a little bit of a rotating action, waffle this thing, you'll find crickets. So they're kind of gross. The way they move is a little bit unsettling. It's just like punctuated and quick, but they're not cute like chipmunks. So yeah, it sort of reminds me of roaches. So I don't have the footage in this particular video update, but in other ones, if you've seen, footage of little juvenile roaches. They could be American cockroaches, but the origin of that species is actually probably from Asia or somewhere else in the world. It's not really known because Americana Periplaneta americana is the species, genus and species name. That has just gone all over the world. So yeah, I couldn't really tell if for some of these pots, that's the other thing that's bad about these pots, like the one that this is growing in, is I have runoff holes drilled in the bottom, so there's constant runoff and moisture, and it's either entirely populated by crickets, and it gets pretty loud at night when they're all chirping during the warmer months. Not right now because this clip was filmed in January of 2023, but yeah, then sometimes I see roaches as well, which is a lot more vile. But yeah, if I just kind of waffle the pot up and down, and they try to run for cover, and then if I let the pot down, sometimes they get smashed because they try to go where shade is. So another batch of leaves is developing. It's day 350. So this thing is growing almost continuously. It's a good sign to see, and you can see this set of leaves has sort of a brownish tint to it, aside from just red. It's very attractive. Some of these leaves, the growth kind of stalled at the top. You do see a new set of leaves coming in, some of which have been chewed on, and some that look really, really dog-eared and rough. Yeah, so I'm hoping that this thing will try to grow vertically, but at the same time, that's just going to increase the leverage on the base of the trunk on the pot, cause it to blow over. Yeah, but if it grows sideways, then it's just sort of uncontrollable because it's so fast. So I do have a dead compound leaf there in the middle of the foliage, but other than that, everything looks pretty good. You can see all these buds are very active. This thing is shooting out new leaves in all directions, and the stuff at the base doesn't really grow much, so it's kind of like pointless activity. This foliage in the center doesn't really get that much sunlight. So that's the other problem with having this in that sheltered cove that you can see in the background. It's just it can only grow outwards in one direction, really, which creates further imbalance due to the sunlight coming from just one direction. And it halves the amount of sun that this thing gets per day. That's my estimate. I mean, it could be something like reducing it by 30%, 40%, 60%. It's really hard to quantify, especially as the seasons change. So I'm noticing that the leaves look a little bit more rough after all these months. So I'm going to spray this Bayer Bio Advanced again, just to be safe. But yeah, actually all this natural rain, cold and wetness in the winter of 2022 going on to 2023, I don't think that necessarily helped my plants because I had them well watered in the first place. We did get a really good wildflower season in April of 2023. So as you can see, it's day 400 now, June 4th, 2023. So this thing is getting so big, it's struggling to stay hydrated. A problem I alluded to at the beginning of this video. So you can see this beautiful compound leaf that's got this chocolate coloration to it. So it's sort of like got brown and yellow in there. Very appealing. And you can see another set here that looks to be in even better shape. And these compound leaves are very interesting because the leaflets, the petioles that connect them, you can see there's sort of a leaf there too. There's a little bit of growth on both sides of the petiole that connects all of this stuff together. So it's a very interesting leaf structure, and very heavy, very droopy. So it's only the ones that don't develop very big, like this one you saw on the upper right, that don't droop as much. But everything else is pretty much droop city. So this thing is getting really big, as you can see. Yeah, if you subtract the height of the pot, maybe it's not taller than me, but with the height of the pot, it's very levered in the wind. So it's day 464. So this is August 2023. I was very delighted to see that flower buds appeared. So we saw all this toroid growth for the better part of a year. At this point, the plant was perhaps yeah, this was its 16th month after I started growing it from a tiny cutting that I had bought from Exotica. So yeah, we have flower buds all over. I can't wait to see what the flowers look like and whether I'm going to get any ice cream beans, which is the whole point of the series. So yeah, this thing has faced some challenges, certainly. It's facing the rare challenge of growing too fast and too big, which I normally do not get to experience with a lot of these failed plant growing series, whether they're from seeds or cuttings. So it's day 475. I ordered a standing desk, and the delivery driver just left that out in the rain, and the pot got knocked over. So it's a terrible experience. I had to move it next to my door, but as you can see, there's flowers as of day 476. So you can see the hose one, like everything's a wet mess, wet, windy mess. But as soon as this storm passes away, I'll just move this back out to where it was. But as you can see, the flowers are nowhere near as appealing as the foliage. And as they shrivel up and die, it just doesn't look very appealing. I mean, they yellow, sort of curl like that. It just looks like, dirty hair, or however you want to describe it, like a brush that is wilting. So it's day 546, and you can see that there are bean pods developing. So I didn't catch this for a while. I don't know when exactly they showed up, but they showed up and grew really quickly. And then they sort of stayed the same size for quite a few weeks. So I have no idea as to how to tell whether those things are ripe. I'm just going to let them sit there because for a taste test at that nursery that I bought this from, I was handed bean pods that look sort of like they're sort of like a dark brown and brittle and hard. So these things are green and felty to the touch. And the other thing I like about this plant actually is it doesn't have a lot of spider webs, although you can see some glistening strands there in the background as I said that. But in general, I think that's a great sign because spiders go where the prey is. And if you have a plant that's constantly webbed over, hopefully it's not spider mites, but if it's spiders, that's still a big problem as well because it means there's just so much prey. There's so many parasites that the spiders are eating. So I bought several of these 20-inch by 20-inch self-watering cubic pots. They cost almost $100 each. So they're made of thick plastic. There's a drainage hole right there. And inside is an internal reservoir that you can hear water sloshing around in as you start using these. And you can see two things that look like they're plugged up. Actually, you can't remove those. But there's like 9 holes on each side of the dual troughs. And one of them, I believe, on each side are actually impermeable, so it's like 8 on each side. So these old pots prevent an easy transplant because in a lot of other transplants for the other growing series, what I did was just grab the base of the trunk and lift. And if need be, I would just sort of squish the sides of the pot to try to loosen everything. But if you have a strong enough root ball that's really well developed, you could just like lift the whole plant out. And I can't do that in this case because these cheap pots are, they basically have this lip that I'm having a great deal of trouble cutting. I have to lift it from the inside and then cut like that. And the pot itself, the plastic, is very, very thin, which is actually not a good thing for the plant either because that doesn't insulate well against the sun and the heat and the cold for the root system, for the root ball. So I'm using this pair of levered scissors and I'm basically cutting through it. And here's another difficult part, getting past that ridge that sticks out. So it's an awkward process, but I decided I'm not going to use these pots anymore, which is a real pain because I bought these, like 3 or 4 of these, and I have to do the same kind of transplant process for all of them. So as of now, when I'm narrating this, it's already past Thanksgiving of 2023. I've done this for all of my plants, and it was a Herculean effort for sure. And it was a lot of backbreaking work, but doing a lot of gardening actually like this, it actually really strengthens you. I wouldn't consider it traditional fitness, but it sort of is a kind of fitness too, because the first time you do this kind of work and you have a multi-hour session out in the front yard, this actually didn't take that long, I would say, but yeah, still, it's like I easily can spend anywhere from 2 to 4 hours out here doing like these kind of big jobs, dealing with little strips of dirt and trying to grow flowers in the sides. So yeah, this is a lot of bending over and bending over to do stuff like this, bending over to move little handfuls dual handfuls of cocoa coir and stuff like that. So it's a lot of working the obliques, the lower back, all those little torso muscles that work in concert to stabilize your entire core, move your body. So yeah, you can see the root ball is really well developed, although gaps have developed in the cocoa coir. I don't really know why that is. It could just be due to natural settling. So when you first use the cocoa coir, it's not very compacted. It's all fluffy, and then I can imagine as the root ball developed, it just held everything in place, like you can see now. But yeah, you can see I'm tipping this pot over to shake out the cocoa coir, and you can see like juvenile roaches, 2 of them, running away to get cover, but there are no holes underneath the new pot, so you really have to worry about them going into the pot. But yeah, that's going to be their new hideout, so I can't really avoid that. But for these new pots, the drainage occurs from that hole you can see in the center of the screen in the background. So I haven't actually seen any overflow coming out of that yet because the capacity is so big, which is a great thing compared to all the pots I had in the past, even the self-watering pots from like almost 10 years ago. So this root ball is really robust, but this sort of looks like fungal growth or mold growth. I'm just interpreting this as new growth. I don't know if that's mycorrhizae for mushrooms. I don't know. You can give your opinions on that in the comments. But you can see the roots are encircling the bottom. The ones that are more of like a yellowish brown, those are just old, and I don't know if they're unhealthy, I would say. Yeah, I've just never seen a root ball this big before. But I would say the stuff that looks more whitish, it's healthy. So there's a lot of good health signs in this root ball. Very robust, and it turns out that pot is way taller than it is wide. So when you try to do the transplant, you just end up like this. And I decided not to cut the root ball because, as you just saw, there's all those like root tips encircling the bottom. I'd basically be cutting off like meters and meters. I don't know how long, if you stretched all of that stuff out, would be. I'm not going to say miles, but yeah, definitely a few hundred feet, maybe a couple dozen feet of roots would just get cut. And I don't want to put the plant through that trauma. I believe I have another solution, which I'll show you. But yeah, I'm scooping the dry cocoa coir. There's a root fragment. That always happens when you do a big transplant like this. Some root fragments break off. But I'll be greatly increasing the cocoa coir mass by filling in the sides. You can see if you add up all that volume, it's a lot of volume, probably equal to or even greater than what's already held in place by this root ball. So this part is always a bit of an art rather than a science, but you just basically use your visual spatial intelligence, kind of line up the plant and look at it from all directions to see, to try to get it to be in the orientation that you want, because once this is all cemented in with new dirt, with new cocoa coir and watered, it's pretty much not going to have much flexibility after that. I mean, you can pull on the trunk and push down on the cocoa coir on one side or try to add more, but the positioning is the most important thing during a transplant. So something I put a lot of effort into just to not screw it up for later. But as you can see, the moment I let go of the trunk, it just kind of leans one way because it's so lopsided. And as I mentioned before, I'm doing this after the transplant. The cocoa coir, the new cocoa coir you can see on the side, is already wet. But this root ball is amazingly dry already because the plant is so thirsty. And I noticed the day after, it was the root ball was all dry, but the new cocoa coir on the sides was still wet and dark brown. So I believe that will persist for quite a while. And I don't even know with this another 2 gallons that I'm adding in of fertilizer of Miracle Grow and Crush Vitamins, if I'm even going to keep this root ball wet for more than a few hours. So as it turned out, it was actually all dried out again the next day, and I believe for the first few weeks after that. But at the same time, I didn't want to get this too wet. It's just my instinct, and I think based on the collective advice of all the other YouTubers on the internet, I think it's just not a good idea to get things too wet after a transplant. But I think most of those refer to when the plant is still a lot smaller than this, or it's like a cutting. You don't want to have everything soaked because the plant can't use that much water. But this is a really different case. So yeah, I think I'll move away from those small pots that you see in the background, the 5-gallon pots that are not really. Wait, no, those aren't. I don't know. I think they claim they're 5 gallons, but it's really like a lot less than that. Those pots look nice, but there's not much capacity, so I decided to buy 6 of these things. And for future plant growing series, I'll just start in one of these if it's a fruit tree. So one thing that I noticed is when you do a transplant, depending on the plant, like the Joshua tree took a long time to see a benefit, but all the other fruit trees being much faster growers, they saw an immediate and huge benefit in being exposed to a new mass of soil. And I think that's not just due to the roots having way more room to expand, and then that improves the hydration situation, turgor pressure, or lack of it with plants, but also due to just having fresh soil mass that's unadulterated. I think that makes a really big difference, because once there's problems or there's a lot of root fragments rotting in there, plants don't seem to like that at all. So this is the end of the road for me in terms of upgrading pots. I don't think I'll find something bigger than this that's practical for a yard this size. So 6 of these takes up quite a bit of space. These won't be tipping over. They're really bottom heavy and stable because of the internal water reservoir and the square base. So I'll never have to worry about this tipping over or watering this on vacations ever again. So thanks for watching.